Again, and welcome to another Bible class video. In the last few days, we've talked about different evidences for the existence of God and the historical reality of Jesus. We've seen that there are different ways that we can prove to outsiders and strengthen our faith that are evidences that God is real and that Jesus really was who he said that he was. And today, we're going to be switching gears just a little bit. We're going to be looking at the massive impact that God's people have had for the past thousands of years on our world. In fact, their footprints, the positive influence that believers had covers the entire globe. And we're just going to look at a few of them from the past couple hundred years. Now, of course, we can't travel physically to these places to see and experience them. So we're going to hop into some virtual reality to be able to understand what God has been doing through his people and the evidences of his impact that he has left for us to observe. Let's start our journey in our country, in America. Specifically, we're going to zoom in onto our school, Mount Calvary, a Christian school. You'll notice that a church is right there. And when we pan the view and just kind of look around from the vantage point of our school, we see several different churches that are filling up our town around us. Now, Mount Calvary Christian School is located in Elizabethtown. Elizabethtown is part of Lancaster County. Now, did you know that there are over 500 churches in Lancaster County? Each one of them is seeking to have an impact in the environment around them, in their own communities. We're going to leave our town and county and travel north to the city of Cambridge in Massachusetts, specifically Harvard University. This is one of the most important universities in America. It's often recognized as the best university in the world. It trains people like presidents and doctors and scholars all over the world. But I want us to notice something about Harvard University, specifically the reason why it was started. We're going to zoom in on what was the original Harvard University. It's that small section that is circled with a yellow line there. And if we go and zoom in into Johnson's Gate, the small gate that marked the entrance of the original Harvard University, you'll notice that if you walk up to there, that there is a plaque. So here, let's zoom in to the gate. There it stands. And now off to the left, there's a plaque that talks about the reason why Harvard University was started, to train people to love God and serve others. Let's zoom out from Harvard University. We're going to travel all the way to the continent of Europe. That yellow line there represents the journey that someone made from Prussia, a place in Germany, all the way to Bristol. Bristol is in modern-day England, but in that time, in the 1800s, was not a very good place to live. The Industrial Revolution had just started, which meant that many people had to work long hours at factories. Now, this led, in effect, to many kids being orphans all throughout the city of Bristol. And as George Mueller, a young church planting pastor, walked around there, he decided to do something about that, to do something about these many kids that were orphans. And he started the George Mueller Orphanage. As you look closely, all of these dark brown buildings behind the rugby field, they are part of his original orphanage. He housed over 2,000 boys and girls, orphans at a time here, and a total of 10,000 orphans were cared for during his entire lifetime here. The ministry still continues, although doing different things. But let's look at what one of these houses would have looked like. 3 stories high, 100,000 British pounds each, a fortune in those days. He spent that caring for the orphans because he was a believer. Had a positive impact for Christianity. We're going to go to the continent of Africa, to this small town that is in the center, or slightly off to the center, of Kenya. And it is the city of Kajab. Kenya is known for 2 parts, the desert towards the north and the rainforest towards the southwest. And the city of Kajabe is right on the border there, between the rainforest and the desert. There's a small highway that passes through it. Besides there, not much happens. It is built up onto the side of a mountain. And you might notice some of the names that
are floating in our screen here. We see a high school, boys and girls, we see several churches, and we see a hospital, the IAC Cure International Hospital. It is run from a ministry that's based right out here in Harrisburg, and it cares for boys and girls that are sick. Let's watch a quick video about that. The IAC Cure Hospital was started by believers wanting to have a Christian impact. Now that line leads to the closest, nearest hospital, aside from the AIC Cure International Hospital. And if you would have to walk that, imagine that you're sick, walking over that kind of mountain slope to the next hospital, it would take you well over 6 hours to make it all the way there. So imagine, here we have a map, well over 6 hours to journey all the way to this other hospital. So they are making a massive impact in the community simply because they are believers that have a mission from God. So we started at Harvard, went to the orphans home in Bristol. Here we are in Kenya. We're going to go to one other place on completely the other side of the world. This place is located near Papua New Guinea in the Pacific Ocean. And there are over 6,000 languages represented in this region of the world. And in the nation of New Guinea, there are well over 800 languages. Now let's zoom in to a small region, the region of Korpan. There are several different tribes here. As we kind of look around, you might notice that something is different from any other place on the map. And that is that there are no cities, there are no roads, and there are no places of interest, right? So this is completely in the middle of nowhere in the jungles of Papua New Guinea. Let's zoom just a little bit closer. You'll see that that blue marker is marked Kimyol. And the Kimyol people, they had no written language and no Bible before a group of missionaries went in there. If you zoom closer, you might see the clearing in the woods. This is most likely the location of where this happened. Let's watch just a short video of these people for the first time ever receiving a Bible in their own language, a language that missionaries helped to write. So we've traveled from Elizabethtown to Harvard and seeing that the school was started by believers to educate Christians. We moved to England and saw in the 1800s that George Mueller was impacting orphans because he believed that that was what God had called them to do. We went to Africa and saw in Kenya that there's a hospital that was started, again, because of believers seeking to impact the world around them. And we ended in the Pacific Ocean, where missionaries wrote out a language and gave Bibles to believers for the first times. These are all examples of Christianity having a massively positive impact in the world around us for the past 2,000 years.